Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Welcome to this section. This is a customer-centric and expectation section, and I'm so honored to have this privilege to, join all these people from the Mars and from the Venus, I suppose. So a big thank you to the organization. A bit about myself. I have 20 years experience from the MTR space, not the MTR underground, but the media technology and real estate. Passionate about digital transformation, innovation, marketing, so on and so forth. So I have big honor to have a very inspiring panels. And this panel are actually from around the world because they've been managing big budgets and then across regions. So we have Daniel, we have Chris today. So Chris is joining us from Sydney. And then we have Napoleon from Hong Kong, but Napoleon is actually around the clock. And then we have Daniel. Daniel is also in the digital space. So Chris is representing our leading brand, the one I believe everyone consuming every day. And then he oversees retail as well as the e-commerce space for the whole APAC region. And Napoleon has 20 years plus experience, so he looks young with digital transformation knowledge, innovation, yes. And then we also have Daniel, entrepreneur, and then leading a mobile app and advertising agency in Hong Kong and servicing more than 2,000 customers. So without further ado, I would like to kick off our section with a clinic. Why we have a clinic? Because customer-centric and expectations could be evolving if we don't get communicate across and we don't have the right partners to get addressed all these difficult issues, especially in the pandemic period. I've been meeting with a lot of C-levels. They're all scratching their heads and kicking, their team. How could we keep business going and growing? And how we could together we emerge in this social distance challenge, and how digital now become a must could help. So I would hand over the stage to Chris as a client, tell us what is his challenge and mandate and how he would like Napoleon and Daniel to help. And then we'll conclude our experience, how or what or why not it works or it's not working. Then we wish this sharing would be inspiring to you, get you wild and be wild. Thank you. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Carrie. So I guess my brief, it's going to be very simple. My business is channel disrupted. We've got physical retailing closed, or at least challenged to have people go into. We've got an acceleration, what I see across the e-commerce component. My CEO is challenging me to really accelerate and grow our digital and e-commerce strategy. So I'm really being challenged to say, well, what do I do from a regional context of how do we drive this further? So I guess given a mandate of I want to accelerate my e-commerce capability across the region, it'd be great to get your thoughts and the team of, how can I approach this? What are some possible solutions I can look at or I can undertake? Where do I start? I want to develop a brief. What do you need from my brief to really enable a great outcome and solution? And then what is ways that I can think differently during this stage to really take advantage of, different customer needs, whether that's digital or their consumption habit changes during this time.
Cool, thank you, Chris. And please introduce a bit about yourself before I pass on the stage to Napoleon.
Yeah, so as Carrie's mentioned, I'm head of e-business for Nestle Oceania. So that covers Australia, New Zealand and Pacific Islands region. So we've got 10 business units plus 50 brands where my team really leads the areas around e-commerce, acceleration, digital delivery, as well as direct. And I've spent more than 15 years working in e-commerce and digital transformation, and I've spent actually 6 years based in Hong Kong leading Clinique for Asia Pacific for the digital consumer marketing and media functions. So,
wow, guru. So Napoleon and Daniel, you have to have real knowledge and extensive experience that could be cited to convince Chris this is something you're going to offer on the table, and it really works. Over to you, Napoleon. A bit about yourself.
Excellent. Of course, this is all live, so we haven't been pre-briefed. The first thing I would do is find out who you are, Chris, and what drives you, because whatever we say in marketing and technology, it still comes down to the personalities and the people buying the service. So I think the first thing I'd want to find out is what Chris's KPIs are. What's he assigned to do, right? What's he got to achieve personally? Because you've given a very big brief, but obviously personally is very important.
Although personally, I'm head of e-commerce. I'm responsible for driving the sales growth and at least acceleration of recruitment, as well as looking at areas such as innovation and delivering of consumer experience. So I think we've just lost Napoleon. So that's sort of probably the first part. And I really want to deliver something of value to consumers, to really have my brand stand out and be something of reinforcing the great product, but do that digitally.
Great. So basically what we're talking about is your internal KPI and what do you expect from consumers? So what you want more sales, right? And then you have
sales is ultimately the thing, but I'm also trying to identify areas of how do I solve problems for them. We've got a component of people who are either economically challenged during this time. They are working from home. They've got in-home consumption needs. So from a food and beverage perspective, that's certainly probably something that I want to deliver of something of value to those consumers as well. And so that's probably what's driving. If Napoleon dropped out there, so sales.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That a
consumer experience, and then sales is my motivator. But ultimately, I want to deliver something of value to consumers, within keeping in mind that this experience during this time of in-home consumption, change of shopping habits, or some sort of economic challenges that some of them might face. I certainly want to also provide something of a benefit for them during this time.
Cool.
So the second thing is, obviously, if I was about to pitch to you, I would have well researched this, and I would know what your kind of digital footprint is, your retail, because I think what's very interesting. I know you do e-business, but I don't know about your organization, but in a lot of organizations now, we're seeing the role of e-business merging into the retail, right? I don't know if you shake hands with the retail, and being a company the size of Nestle, I'm sure you have lots of distribution channels. So, I've done work with Coca-Cola and people like that, and they all have different distribution channels. So, of course, I would be coming to the table and knowing your business inside out, which I'm sorry to say, I don't know now. But I guess
you're very hypothetical in this case. We're starting from nothing. Yeah, we got a great.
So you're working. Yeah, you're working regionally, and what I found, is fascinating when you work across Asia is that, especially in the digital world, is the platforms are not the same, and I'm sure Daniel can expand upon this. But the way that people are finding and discovering your products are not the same, right? What they might be doing in Indonesia is different from what they're doing in Sydney, in Jakarta. Sydney is different. So I think this kind of understanding those different channels. When I spoke with the Coca-Cola crowd, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, it's all about Shopee and Lazada and lots of local marketplaces, right? When it comes to Hong Kong, we have our own ecosystem, HKTV. We have our own marketplaces going on here. So I guess up front, we need to work out what your priority is. Are you more of a direct to the consumer kind of guy, and you want to build up that relationship and actually sell directly to them? Or are you restricted from doing that, and you can only go through partners and supermarkets and other chains?
If I may, allow me to chip in a little bit. So I'm Daniel, founder and CEO of GoGoChart. And just to echo based on what Napoleon was saying, I think by understanding your consumers first and where your actual target audience are, some of them who you may think are your potential audience may not be actually your target customers. They look like they're your target customers, but they're not. And also, I think having worked with Alibaba and also Bonjour, the local brands in Hong Kong, helping them to transform from 100% retail to 99% online, virtually basically all online now, live stream, KOLs, all of that. They've basically done that in 9 months. So they had to during COVID. So, and I think this applies to a lot of the retail brands globally. You have to consider, how do you engage your audiences online, virtually? Where are their eyeballs actually? What are they actually using daily? I mean, did you all know during COVID H1 first half in 2020, the mobile usage have gone up by 70% globally. So people are using our mobile phones a lot more often than ever. People are a lot more prone to using new technology, adapt to new technologies. I think understanding the trend and user behaviors first, like gathering data, will make a lot more sense before implementing any physical strategies.
And I mean, I think also, I think it's been very interesting during COVID because all of these, places that people shop online have had a bit of a, trouble trying to get traction over the last few years. They've been growing, but not a mad pace, right? Of course, Amazon is held up and China is held up for being, the star of everywhere. But in Southeast Asia, other parts of Asia, it's all very, very local. And I think what COVID has done, apart from just the surge in mobile usage, is the surge in e-commerce and the convenience. I mean, I think what I've seen, I mean, your category, Nestle, right? You have home products, you're in a very lucky category, right? Because you basically have no restrictions as far as I know, right? You're not selling booze. So you can sell to anybody coffee, on any channel, right?
Noodles.
Yeah, coffee, noodles, you're basically student food that's gone, has gone full on COVID stay at home food. So, and you've got, I think Nestle also has a milk powder brand for,
we've got NAN, we've got infant nutrition, we've got health sciences,
yeah, exactly.
Sausagen,
so
across the.
I mean, I think you've got a lot. I mean, I would say the next thing is content, because you have a lot to play with. And what I've seen has happened over COVID is like we are doing now, it's video, right? I mean, before video, the platforms were clumsy, the experience is pretty horrible. And now people are getting used to the idea of learning about a product over video, right? So I think, you see here in Hong Kong, you see malls like K11. I just got off one with a pop-up guy showing his chocolate cake, it's become a kind of daily thing, right? You can't go there, so how can you experience it? So I think taking advantage of people's paranoia, I know this sounds pretty horrible in the marketing world, but the psychology of what people, people are a little bit scared, especially if you have children. I have 2 young children. Are they safe? Am I providing them the right food? Are they getting the right lifestyle? So there's a whole range of emotions that you can tap into. And I think, digital channels have migrated from very static content into very, very live content. So I think that's a really interesting phase to be in, is what can you do with that content? And typically in the old days, Nestle would go out and, do a research test of product on people, and nowadays you don't have time for that. And I think as Daniel hinted, is you're working with, influencers, KOLs. I mean, I was talking about this back in 2006. What I find is amazing is how videos and other people talking about your brand has become so mainstream, right? So I would take your content. I know we don't have much time. What I'd say is the first thing, we know your audience, we know where they're hanging out, and then how can I tell them about your product that differentiates it? The problem your product has is kind of grocery level, not to put it down, right? So the question is, if you walk into a shop, you've got shelves to play with, you've got signs to play with, you've got a bit of sound and promotional stuff to play with. When you're online, how do you get in front of people's faces and get their attention? I think is still a challenge, right? So I think we've all been on social media for a while, but social media is drowned with information. So how do I convert? I think the biggest problem. Sorry.
So up to this point, then we have, so basically up to this point, we have 15 minutes gone. The client brief is done, and then we're trying to kind of like speculate how big is that, and then what we have to do in different perspectives, like know your customer, know your stuff, what are you going to sell, and then how we could do that. And then Daniel actually bring up a very good point in terms of knowing the trends before the planning. And could I have a midway feedback that, Chris, do you have more ideas now on how to give a better brief, so that you can get to the right solution that could be presented to your management and get it executed? So we still have another 50 minutes to go. So you really need to push that forward. Otherwise, 30 minutes gone, then you have nothing to present.
It's certainly good input there to the role of channel, the type of message that you want to put out. Content's really interesting area, particularly as people are looking to be inspired at home, baking food recipes for the first time. A lot of people are introducing new ways of which they are looking to explore that at home, when before that they might have eaten out at physical restaurants. So providing that content, that's really interesting, Napoleon. I guess it's trying to look at the types of formats of which you could create around this to really make it interesting. I've seen different versions of that. Have you got any guidance, I guess, between more of an infomercial type product display versus much more engaging to the relevancy of what's happening with say at home baking or coffee consumption at the moment?
I'll let Daniel answer that one. I have got lots to say, but I think Daniel needs some airtime. So over to you, mate.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, again, I think all very good suggestions and ideas here. And I think one of the idea that I would suggest actually is to tell a great story for what happened during COVID. For the brands and all the products and brands that you work with, it's and also the related audiences, using your clients as potential content, get them to share content. This has been a successful drive for many platforms and brands, especially in COVID, right on to what's been affecting our daily lives, but turn that into, compelling stories. I think that would be a great angle to get in. Everybody loves a story. We've all been through the COVID for 9 months. Everyone's been wearing masks daily here in Hong Kong, everywhere else in parts of the world. I think that would be a great angle to get into. Obviously, being selective on one or two products may work. I'm not sure. I haven't studied the whole pipeline and portfolio of your products, but I think working with the utilizing what's happened in pandemic and come up with a compelling story would be a great angle to get in there. That's my suggestion for sure.
And I know, Chris, you're quite, people like to report back to their bosses. And so we've talked about the kind of strategy. I think the next phase is which channels are you going to use? Because, bosses always want to know very concrete answers. Where are you going to put your money and what's the return going to be, right? Return on investment, return on advertising spend, whatever. I mean, I think what's interesting about, KitKat and some of the brands you've got is that obviously you can really reach out to people on Instagram, on Facebook. And I think now what's really interesting is there's a whole new tranche, technology moves along and people adapt to it before the brands get there. And I see a lot of activity on WhatsApp, WeChat, because of COVID, you're seeing communities build up on instant messaging, mobile messaging stuff, Daniel's area. But basically I see a lot of activity, groups being formed. My wife is having groups on WhatsApp talking about where to take children, how do you do play dates when there's social distancing. There's all these questions that come up. So I found it really interesting because all these conversations that used to happen on Facebook, which is, kind of still a public area. And, we've all had so many horror stories about Facebook. Even if they're right or not, a lot of people have migrated into where they feel are more secure areas like WeChat, WhatsApp, Line, all these little communities. And I think it's really fascinating because I think you could easily jump into those communities, whether it's through influencers like Daniel was pointing out, like people who are, they used to call them mummy bloggers, right? I'm not saying that's your only audience, but that kind of crowd. But also now WhatsApp, and I've got a whole service around this that I've recently launched, but WhatsApp has gone into the business field, right? They're all owned by Facebook. So they're starting to provide services that allow you as a brand to reach out and actually sell. And that would feed into your next KPI, which is, right, you're going to spend this money, how much are you going to generate? So I think it would be really important to build out a kind of expectation of when we get people active and they're talking about this, they're learning about it, they're watching videos, they're seeing people cook at home, how the hell are they going to order? Because typically the ordering process is really clumsy, right? You've got to click on a link that takes you to a website. You've got to find the product. You've got to enter your details. You've got to check out, which is still a pain in the ass. So I think the next thing to look at is all of these payment platforms and how do these plug into your offering? Because all of the payment companies like Stripe, Adyen have now moved up a grade where you can just send somebody a link and they can check out on their mobile, right? They pay directly. They don't have to get stuck in some giant e-commerce machine, right? They just go, right, I'm going to pay. Hong Kong, we have Pay Me. Other countries have quick checkouts. And I think this is a great area. And I know, maybe Daniel with his mobile world is what he's doing, but I really think this idea of tapping into instant messaging, driving, content followed by a sale. And to be honest with you, it's a bit like TV sales. Here's my jewelry. Doesn't it look good? Want to buy it? Call this number, right?
Just to echo on what Napoleon was saying, I think that we should probably propose something for Chris to be able to feed it back to the boss and potentially management. I would suggest, like Napoleon was saying, if you have a budget in mind, not saying you do, but you need to work out the user acquisition cost or your potential client lifetime value, all those figures, especially in digital, everything should be tracked, and it can be tracked and it should be, and also it could be of a value. And I would try as much channel as possible, but in smaller volume. So once you've tested your first phase of all the channels that you can possibly try and think of, but in small phases and small tiny budgets, and then you will have a feedback, which is what we call data, performance data. In our world, we test everything, but using data and track mechanism and analytics, number of them. And then you turn off all the ones that aren't really giving you anything, like 0 returns. And then you double down on the ones that are giving you feedbacks and obviously good performance. That would be a great start. And that should be part of the foundation of your digital marketing in campaigns. In terms of digital side, that's how we helped Uber and Carlsberg and Alibaba and Tencent. So,
and I'm just going to contradict myself. Sorry, just one more point, just to contradict myself. Yep. Don't always go for the bright, shiny new things, right? I think you know this, Chris, but what I have find fascinating is that email has come back with a vengeance, mainly because of mobile and people accessing mobile, through email through their mobiles. And I think, reaching out to people, one of the channels that Daniel's talking about is the idea that email can still be a way to reach out to people, right? You can personalize it, you can track it, you don't care what platform they're on, you don't get stuck in, this morass of, is it official, isn't it official? It's still a great driver. And in many countries, people still do use email, although mobile messaging is kind of more ahead. But there is an audience, I think, in every country that uses mobile email.
That's part of the channel as well. I agree, 100%. Email, instant messaging, Instagram, Facebook, Google Ads, anything. All those should be formed as just single channel you should review. But again, should be neutral and just use figures to judge. Yeah, I think that's the best way in terms of judging or reviewing a digital campaign.
And then if your organization is friendly, I would try and do the classic, can you work with the outlets? Because one of the areas that we're seeing now is as markets open up, even if it's for a short period of time, there's a desperate surge of people going out, putting their masks on and going up to malls, going out shopping, especially if you've got kids who's like, oh my God, I've got to get them out of the house. So there's a massive surge of, shopping malls across Asia as they open up are packed. So I think tapping into that, the actual physical footfall is you shouldn't forget that in the digital world.
Great. Thank you so much for, Daniel and Napoleon's great inputs and ideas. And Chris, you have a tough job now. So you've gathered, bits and pieces, a lot of information, kinds of like bombing to you. How and what you pick on and what you really work on in the next that you think would be really helpful in your digital innovation and transformation process as to bring forth revenue, because that is your ultimate pain. And I would like to have your feedback, and then we'll go through a round of conclusion in 5 minutes time. So you have 1 or 2 minutes, okay?
No, so certainly thank you for everybody's input. Certainly there's, as companies are experiencing this is obviously a made up example for Nestle. We've got a fairly established e-commerce footprint, but we're always looking for that next line of innovation and customer, and we're certainly pivoting to customers as they change their consumption habits. So, really important guidance, I think, for businesses to look at how do they brief and what are they briefing and what do they do, because you obviously are always going to be challenged for to get that sort of growth and do it tomorrow, but is that the right decisions to make, and taking that sort of approach through the line there around channel investment, ROI, are really key areas to make sure that you are spending wisely. I guess I'm very positive of the future and the shift that's taking place. I think online's only scratching the surface, and certainly putting in place strategies now will still pay off for 5-10 years. I really believe that there's a whole bunch of new consumers coming into the channel, older, who just almost the barriers have been reduced and they're being exposed the first time. So, I'm really looking forward to the possibilities and the innovation that can come from either service, customization. I don't think we've even tapped the surface of what that looks like. So that's really what I'm excited about, and certainly those inputs into a brief can guide where companies go for their exploration around this, and not just selling stuff, but it's really delivering consumer value and experience, I think is really important.
Great. I think one thing you mentioned really well is how do we understand the consumers and how we really get into their hearts and emotionally connect with them before they spend with us. So if I would allow to conclude a bit, basically, I believe everyone has touched on this, pie a bit, but we have a very tough 30 minutes, so we couldn't go deep into every single area, but like what Chris said, we scratch on the surface. And this surface has been, a guideline for all of us in terms of our digital journey. So if we look into that, strategy is the key thing, how we, reach out and what are we going to push, and how we use data to drive that decisions to make sure it's close to right. We would not get it really right at the start, but we optimize it because it is digital. And we always put customer as our centric, like Napoleon and Daniel did. They really focus on, the brand, Chris as the centric in offering the solution, and how we do the organization alignments, because we are just facing Chris today, and Chris is not facing just us. Chris is facing the whole organization, including operations, fulfillment, delivery, as well as production, so on and so forth. You have a lot of stakeholders to deal with, and how we could help as an outsider, agents or partners to help you, and then what are the analytics to be able to provide to you as to talk the story internally and bring more people onto the journey to support you. And then people and culture part, we couldn't deal with it, but as an outsider, we help you. And then what are the other innovation? Like say, for example, we said email works, social media works, mobile works, but what else is working? Say, for example, could we use small group like WhatsApp marketing, but they are not seeing each other's mobile number because they are using mobile more frequently instead of email. Then what else? New channels like TikTok could be helping. So this is everyday, journey, and we have a great contribution from all of you. If I'm allowed to have one more minute, this is 59 minutes already. So can I have one statement from all of you? Just one statement. What is the feeling now, and what are you going to? What would wow you to see next? If to conclude this section, feelings.
COVID equals rebirth.
Wow, thank you, Chris.
Acceleration will continue in this space. It's just the beginning.
Great. Sell more. Okay, Daniel.
For me and for us, actually, it's always about constant optimization.
Great optimization. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone's great inputs. We have a very fruitful 30 minutes, and I wish I have chance to meet all people from the Mars again. So I'm from the Venus, Carrie. Thank you. Bye,
Carrie.
everyone.
Thank you.
Wish you enjoyed this
Bye.
session.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
唔該晒，謝謝，邵生龍。